Hello, ma'am. How are you?
Oh, I'm living the high life.
Okay. So today we are in Bradenton, Florida. What is your name, ma'am?
Sherry.
Sherry.
I go by Jill. That's
Okay.
my middle name.
Okay. So where are you originally from?
I was born in Rockford, Illinois. My family moved here when I was 9, so I've been here the majority of my life. I moved to Bradenton when my son was young because it was cheaper here to live, and it was it wasn't as nice, but it was a lot cheaper to live.
Okay. So you've been in Bradenton for a while. How long have you been on the streets?
You know what? I've lost count, but I feel like a veteran of the streets now. I've been out here probably at least 6, 7 years.
Okay.
I lost my job, and I couldn't get my unemployment, which I was eligible for. And they kept the first check, but they denied all the rest, so I didn't get any. And that was before COVID, so when COVID hit, and I wanted really badly to get a job like my previous job. And it was really bad because when COVID hit, there was so much fraud. And I had been putting in applications and doing all the right things, and I'm being denied, and then I have to appeal, and it was really difficult. And then I finally gave up. And I talked to many people who had the same problem.
Okay.
And it's kind of been just a downhill slope ever since.
Okay.
We had family that turned on me, and I'm not 100% sure why, but my son, my mother, and my brother all became homeless at different times and for different reasons. And they all came looking for me, found me, so we had like 3 generations, which is really pathetic. But my mom had dementia. The sad thing is we lost my mom and my son in March of this year. My son was diabetic related, and my mom, like I said, had dementia, and she walked out in front of a car and was hit and died in surgery. And my son died behind Walmart. I'm not even sure what 100%, but they said people thought it was an overdose, but I'm told it was did his diabetes. So I'm struggling. I've been struggling, but all I can do is what I can do. The sad thing is, I've been out here all this time, and I feel like this county has stripped me of everything. My self-worth, my dignity, everything I've ever owned has been taken from the sheriff's department to the code enforcement department. And I feel like even if it's legal, it's unethical. I had the outreach program followed me around, wanting me to get my mom into a facility, but in order to put her in a facility, I would need a long term. That way she wouldn't have to go through it twice. You could go in and, but while I was looking for that, the outreach program decided they were going to put, do some things that were a little sketchy to me. And kind of long story short, a few months later, she was gone. And my son also, same month.
I know it's not the nicest question to ask a lady, but your age right now?
I'm 56.
56. Okay. I know it's not the nicest one to ask.
You know what? I really, to be honest, I've kind of been looking for a way to explain to people what really goes on out here, because I know there was a time when it was alcoholics just laying around getting drunk and whatever. I hate that car, by the way. I hate it.
Woo, that thing is loud.
That's why I hate it.
Yeah.
It's a cool car, but I hate that. Every day it's the same thing. But basically, all day long.
Young kids trying to be cool. So out here, you experience difficulties, frightening moments. Obviously, this is a super dangerous area.
Actually, I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna be really honest.
All right, cool. Break it down.
And the whole time we've been out here,
Yeah.
you know, there's been the same stigmas, you know, we're all messy, we're all thieves, whatever. And it's true. A lot, like 95%.
That's what I
all
usually
under
say.
there, and it's true. People don't care to get better. I think some people start out that way.
Yeah.
But the struggle is real. When they say it's real, and people just lose their desire after a while. And you figure if they're going to get everything given to them made easy, and not forced to work and not made to do anything, why work? I mean, really, to be honest, they can do whatever they need to do to get their drug money or whatever, whatever their vice is.
Yeah.
Everything else is free.
Yeah.
And they don't have to give up anything. And I think when they talk to homeless people, they think, oh, well, we're doing them all these things for them, giving them all these things, and it's true. In Bradenton, if you're hungry, you're stupid because there's food everywhere. It's just everywhere.
People help the homeless here.
Oh my God, with food,
Yeah.
no question.
Yeah.
Housing is a little bit difficult,
Yeah.
but the problem, in my opinion, is they don't ask for anything in return. So why? No, you don't have to volunteer your time. You don't have to give back to the community. You go with your hand out, and I'm as guilty as anyone. Up until, recently, I never got food. I never got anything. I worked since I was 16 years old.
Yeah.
And my dad always said, don't take it unless, because you're taking it from someone else.
Who needs it? Yeah.
And that's kind of what we live by as a family. But I started losing family members at a rapid pace. My older brother died, then my father, then my mom, then my son, and it's been really hard because, it's amazing to me how family changes when the dynamic changes, and especially if they think there's money or something involved. And I didn't do the best I could, but I set up camps for my mom while we were all out, trying to make the situation as comfortable as they can. And they would always say to us, the officials would say, out of sight, out of mind. Go somewhere where you won't be seen. So we'd spend all this time making a camp in a little area, and the minute someone came that saw you, like where the man was dismembered.
Yeah.
Have you heard about
Yeah,
that?
I know that one. Yeah.
Okay, well that was our camp.
Yikes.
And they were right across from us. So
Is that the one that was right on 41?
yeah.
So I'll tell you a crazy
We were in the
story.
back. We were in the
Okay,
back.
I'll tell you a crazy story about that. So if you're not familiar, this is a guy who was arrested for killing another homeless guy right on US 40 freaking 1.
We knew him.
Right. So after he did that, I walked up to him and tried to get an interview from him, like hours, the day after, because it was like a time frame in the middle where when they were looking for the suspect. Rather, I went up to him. I'm like, hey man, I want to get an interview from you. He was like, no. The next day on the news, I see that he got arrested for a homicide, and I was like, dang! I tried to interview this guy who literally had just finished whacking somebody.
Yeah. Well, we didn't know him well, but obviously we shared an area.
Yeah.
And he would come and offer to help us, and
Did they ever talk about what that was about, or never got really?
There was a lot of rumors. You never really know.
Nobody
for sure,
never really got to it. Yeah.
My understanding was there was some kind of problem before the actual thing happened, and whatever it was.
Yeah.
The guy.
Yeah, I went up to him. I tried to get the interview off of him.
Yeah, they called him Eskimo or something like that.
I tried to interview him. Like I went up to him and I tried to talk to him. Like, hey man, because he was moving his stuff out right after it happened. Like he was trying to flee. So he had all his stuff on US 41. So I'm driving by and I see like a pile of garbage on US 41.
Right.
And I was like, yo, this is kind of crazy. Do you need some money? I see you're kind of trying to do this, right? And he's like, no, anything. I'm like, look, I got a pickup truck. Do you need me to help carry your stuff to another spot? I help you, you help me kind of situation. And he was like, no, I'm in a really serious situation. I'm like, what's going on? He's like, I can't talk about it. And then, like, the next day I see him on the news. I was like, dang.
Yeah, there was a lot going on. But the problem that we had with that was, yes, that was a safety issue, and we understood that. But the minute we saw the face of our outreach, advocate, if you will, and I call her the devil, and I always will. Um, she she came in. The other officers that came through said, "Oh, we're looking for this gentleman," and they didn't show us pictures or anything. They just said his name. I didn't recognize anybody by their name, but when Officer DeWitt came through, she showed us pictures, and I remembered seeing him, but I didn't know him. And then, of course, you have the cadaver dogs start coming. The other officers start coming. So you know something's up. And then they started taking out body bags and that type of thing. The dogs were hitting all over the place. And
What?
it wasn't terrifying.
I mean, think about the fact that this isn't like in the woods. This is on US 41.
Right in the middle of the town, right. The biggest thoroughfare in
to
town.
think that you're going to do that to somebody and then bury them on 41 is crazy.
Imagine not really knowing the guy, but he seemed very
your
friendly.
neighbor. Yeah, your neighbor practically.
He was offered to do stuff for us, and to hear that he did such a thing was like, oh my God, he's been in my tent, and we talked, and it was a little bit scary. But what was more scary to me was when everyone left. I knew when I saw her face that she would close us down, that our camp would be no more.
Oh, of course, yeah, that ruined it.
And so I told them immediately. I told people in our camp, start tearing it down. Even though it took us a long time to put it up, and it was great.
Yeah.
We had I wanted my mom to feel as comfortable. I didn't have much to offer her, but I wanted her to be comfortable while she was out there. We had a bathroom. We had a nice area.
How do you make a bathroom?
They have a pop-up shower, and then they have I think it's called like a.
Like for the RVs or something?
Something loo. It's like a toilet, that's very much like a toilet in your home.
Yeah.
And we made it. We just put up a shower and made it as close to.
Yeah.
We wanted my mom to feel as close to home.
I've seen homeless camps where they have solar panels and then they'll run electricity.
Oh yeah.
I've seen a guy who had a big screen TV in his tent. I mean a big screen TV.
I'm telling you, I've seen some very intricate places, and you strive for that kind of thing because you're hoping that you can save for some, have some stability. My issue was, I had been, told, oh, don't you feel bad? Your mother's out here with you, and she, don't you get bored with this kind of life and whatever. Mm-hmm. And the point was to keep her. She didn't want to go into assisted living,
right?
And her faculties were still there to make the choice. So I was trying to talk her into it, and what happened was, we were preparing, like I said, to put her in a long term.
¿Cómo está, primo? Dame con un abrazo. Let me say hi to him real quick. Yo casi te arroyo. Estabas tomando y estabas en la 41. Por nadita te arroyo, amigo.
I love
Tienes que tener cuidadito cuando tomas. Porque estabas en la 41, primo. Te quiero, oíste. Thanks, brother. I almost ran him over one day. He was on.
He's a good guy.
He's a good guy. Dale, mi amigo. Yeah, yo sabía que estaba tomadito, pero casi lo arroyo. Dale, te quiero, papi. No hay problema. Dale, todo bien. He was drinking, I almost ran him over. Dale, no hay problema, te quiero, papi. Dale. So me and him were, I was driving on 41 and I almost ran him over. He was like walking out there like
he's
some.
Really sweet guy.
He's awesome. I can tell he has a cool personality.
He's very nice guy.
So, I mean, you worked so hard to set up your camp.
It took a long time, and we chose the area based on the fact that this place had been empty for a long time.
Yeah.
My parents used to live right across the street, so I knew that it had been empty for a long time. And I knew it belonged to someone. I'm not going to say, I think it was just an empty lot. It was very well kept as far as they mowed it and whatever. But you never saw anyone there trying to sell it. You never saw anyone parked out front, with big dreams of putting anything into motion. And so when we got in there, I tried to find some place. I looked, to me it's customary to go and look for somebody that's there and say, hey, we're here, we'd like to,
Yeah.
So I looked around, and I saw a couple of people in the front, and then I saw a gentleman in the middle, and I spoke with him, and I said, listen, I need a place for, a woman who's partially disabled, my mother who's older, and she's got,
How old was
dementia.
she at the time when she was out there with you?
She was 79.
Should somebody that old be on the streets? That's wrong.
Absolutely not.
That is so wrong.
There's no question as to why she would be out on the streets because of her eviction, but I'm still
There's
working
no
on that
excuse why somebody, I would say like after 65 maybe, definitely
Agreed.
after 71, nobody older than 71 years old
agree.
deserves that.
I
That
agree.
is, no, I don't care what their situation is.
And this county has one real shelter. Well, they're working on more, but at the time there was one shelter that was the Salvation Army.
Yeah, and it's
Um,
$15 a night.
I'm going to tell you the truth. I wouldn't put my mother, and I've asked
Oh,
the
no.
officers.
There's-
well, would
there's-
you put
I
your
see
mother in
people-
there?
It's scary. It's dangerous.
It
Okay,
is.
I'm a grown big guy, and I drive by there at night. I see people fighting. I see fights. It's scary. It's not.
Well, the thing about this town is I probably broke bread with every type of human and up and down this road.
Yeah.
People that people would say was unsavory, drug dealers and whatever. And I've not had any problem. I'm kind to everyone, and then I treat them accordingly. And
Yeah.
everyone has been relatively. I've never found myself in a really dangerous situation. However, I asked the lady who is our outreach volunteer for the sheriff's department. Did she have some lights? They give them lights for our bikes, and she said she was not going to give me lights because homeless people steal from homeless people. That was her reason.
So I'll tell you, it's a young female, right? I found her credit card in Lakewood Ranch.
Wow.
Listen to this story. I'm walking around my parking lot where I live, and I find a credit card on the floor. I see the name. I look her up on Facebook, and I say, "Hey, I found your credit card, right?" So I meet her up. I didn't know she was a cop. I meet her up, and I return her credit card to her, and I ask her, what do you do? Just out of curiosity, we just started like, what do you do for a living? She's like, "Oh, I'm an outreach officer for the homeless." It's like, wow, interesting. Yeah, there's a few. I'm thinking about a young lady, maybe Italian complexion, kind of skinny. She's a younger girl.
Does she have a list?
If you tell me her name, I'd remember it.
Joy Jewett.
What's the name?
Joy Jewett.
May not have been that.
Okay, she is she heads it really. She's more of the upper part.
Yeah.
They also have the outreach that like a DCF type of situation, which she's also got upset with me because they pushed back with her when she came to close down our camp, and because she's always telling me she has a letter or an affidavit, so I said, well, show it to me.
Right.
And she's, she doesn't have to, and I said, well, I have a letter from the owner.
A lot of times they don't. It's a lie.
But and they may not have to.
They
I
don't,
don't know.
yeah.
But I can tell you from experience.
But you're
that
homeless and she's a cop. So
the problem I have is to their discretion to say, look, you have this man who lives wherever, or this woman who lives wherever. We're the vehicle to tell you you can stay a little bit longer, but you got to be out in 2 weeks, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's never that way. So what happens is they say you have the owner will be here in a week, and they're going to put up the fence, and they're going to put up signs. And
It
I
never
say,
happens, yeah.
first of all, shouldn't that have already been done? Nobody, technically, nobody should be walking back there at all if those things are there in the first place. So, I see it coming, but I think to myself, well, if you're not going to give me lights, I'm not going to use them. So, any ticket I get, I'm just forward right to your desk. As far as I'm concerned, if you don't give them to homeless people, who do you give them to?
Yeah, I think it might have been her. So she gave me her business card because she said she works with the homeless, and I said, well, I do a lot of work with the homeless, right? And then I see the card. It's from Manatee County Sheriff's Office. I'm like, oh, she's a cop, okay. And I thought she helped the homeless because the title is like outreach. You would think the word outreach would suggest
It's supposed to.
that they help the.
It's supposed to give us this. It's supposed to give us this reason to trust. Well, the trust comes, when they come along and they hand out their cards and they say, "Oh, we have all these resources," until you realize those resources are available at turning points, and basically all of them.
The word outreach is a little misleading.
It really is.
It's more like homeless eradication.
That and what it does is, I think her real job
Yeah.
is to gain the trust of the homeless.
Document who's homeless.
Yes, and then use them where they can be used. Oh, do you know this couple?
Mm-hmm.
They're in a little bit of trouble, or we need to find them, or
They got warrants. Yeah.
I'm not going to do
No,
that.
it's not. They label it an out. When I saw her title, I thought, great, she helps the homeless. But then I started asking the homeless people about her, and they're telling me, Grammy
And
crap.
it's funny, even her own people have said, yeah, a lot of people feel that way.
I remember a while back, there was this guy, I can't remember his name. He was in a wheelchair. He likes to drink a lot. He likes to be around downtown. And I haven't seen him in a while. Now, he's in a wheelchair, but he can barely walk. And I think he needs diapers. So that's his situation, right? And he was drunk, and he was just acting a fool. And there was a girl cop and a guy cop. And they were so patient, so kind in dealing with him, because he was just, drunk, angry. And I'm sitting here like in the parking lot. The cops don't know I'm watching them, but I'm watching them. And they're treating this guy with so much patience and so much kindness. So I go up.
It's hard to believe, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, if nobody's watching,
Yeah.
if they don't know you're watching, that's hard to believe.
They were being kind to the guy.
That's
and I
good.
go up to him, and what happened was we were having a rainstorm that was going to come, and they were trying to take him to the hospital so he wouldn't get rained on. But he was reluctant. So there's bad and there's good.
Oh, listen, you know what? I'll be honest. There's a lot of really nice officers. They're very pleasant. We had one at that very same place.
Yeah.
He came to the perimeter of our camp,
Yeah.
and he said, "Can I come in?"
Wow.
And we were both like, "Did he just say, 'Can I come in?'" And we're like, and he said, "Well, you live here, don't you?"
Yeah.
And I thought, that's never happened since and never happened before.
Yeah.
But that kindness and the manners and the respect that he had really made us feel good, because we get so much of the opposite. It's like comments are made that are unnecessary.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I get it. You don't like the homeless people. You're insensitive to it because you see so much. And a lot of the stigmas are absolutely 100%. But we're not all the scumbags that they're trying to, and collectively this town believes
You think that the
we
people
are.
that own all these buildings aren't scumbags too? They
I think
just live in
I think
mansions.
there's scumbags in every community. Let's be real and let's be logical. There's
They just have mansions. They can't
thieves
get.
and you have mothers that are thieves. You have grandmothers.
You got
have
banks. You got
women at home. Right. I mean, blue
banks,
collar.
stores, car dealerships.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
you can be corrupt. You
There's
can
a lot
be
of-
corrupt,
oh,
but
yeah.
you can't be homeless, because if
Yeah.
you don't have four walls and a roof, they're either stupid or you're lazy but they don't remember that just
If you had to leave your wallet next to a homeless person or a used car salesman, which one would you trust more?
Wow. Well, considering I used to work for a used car salesman here recently.
Yeah. That's a tough
I
call.
would him, but it just anyone I didn't know.
It's a tough call,
That
huh?
would be that would
It's
be
not
a tough.
exactly a dry and cut.
I could threaten a homeless person, but I really couldn't say much to the car salesman. So probably
Yeah.
probably a homeless. I don't know.
That's
I have a lot of.
it's not a dry and cut answer.
I know a lot of people, so
Yeah.
I kind of try to gauge who I think might
It's random,
hold on to it.
random.
I've had people I had to watch, and I've had two people to choose from, and they're kind of the same, and you're like, the lesser of two evils. But then I think somebody probably looks at me the same way, But the homeless
Here's the
situation-
difference. If the homeless person steals from you, it's out of necessity. But the car salesman steals out of just his job.
Well, if a homeless person steals from a homeless person, it's not necessarily out of. Sometimes they come to your camp or your spot and they look around while they're talking to you, and later at night they they don't need it necessarily, or they do. But the truth of the matter is, I've had everything you can imagine stolen from me from homeless people.
Mm-hmm.
But it pales in comparison to what the sheriff's department had taken from me
Wow.
and code enforcement. Because
Wow.
I'll tell you why. That same camp, okay, was two lots side by side. One had no coverage, the other was nothing but coverage. It was a beautiful place. And my thought was, okay, she'll give us a little extra time because one, everybody left. It was just us pretty much left. Ours was a big camp. I mean, just us. We were under a big dead oak tree. And, you know, a gentleman had brought my mom a couch all the way across this place, you know, so she'd have like a sitting area. Everybody loved my mom.
Somebody brought your mom. That's nice.
Everybody
and the other
loved
thing
my
is,
mom.
okay, so let's talk about acts of kindness. What is the nicest person? I'll ask you. What's the nicest thing a person has done for you, and what's the nicest thing a homeless person has done for you? Both ends.
Okay, well, I can tell you that the first day I remember being homeless,
Yeah.
a gentleman came up to me, and I was sitting, I was in tears. I didn't know what I was going to do. I had no money. I had nowhere to go. It was getting dark, and I'd never been out by myself. Now, I come from a professional background, never had been on the street, had nothing, like no sense of, what, you know, was smart, was not smart, no street, anything.
Nothing. Green.
My son was not you know, raised on the streets, but he had knew a lot more than I did. So I needed him there. But anyway, I was sitting there, and this gentleman came along. He was an older man. His name was Charles, or Charlie, I think. And he said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm okay. I'm a little bit nervous. This is the first time I've ever been out here by myself." And he said, "Are you homeless?" And I said, "Yeah, just recently, like just now."
Just now, yeah.
And he goes, "Listen, I got paid today. I worked a little bit. I don't usually get much work." And he gave me a $20 bill.
Wow.
And he said, "You know, I worked. Don't worry about it." And I said, "I don't want to take your money. You know, I really feel bad." And he said, "Listen, you're gonna have a long ways to go."
Yeah.
And he said, "You need to start it off right." And he gave, and I'll never forget that as long as I live. I mean, he was the first person, and there's been a lot of saints since then. I mean, there's a lot of really people with real hearts for homeless people. They don't look at us and go, "Ugh," or don't make eye contact, or they want to stare at you when you're not, you know, when you're doing something. But if you were to whip up a sign or something like that, they'd turn their head so fast, you know, they get whiplash. But
well, it's like your friend that's here with you right now. I had to record him because it was just hysterical. He was like literally just standing on the road, and I'm yelling at him like, "Get out of the road! Get out of the road! You're gonna get hit." So there's times where like it's
well, I keep journals.
But it wasn't out of hate. It was like out of like, hey, you know, don't be out there like that.
Well, I've kept journals for a long, long time.
Wow.
The problem is, the sheriff's department got them, and with the same camp, when she made us leave, she said, "You are trespassed from here," which is where we stood in my camp, and this place over here, which was right next door, the other lot, I think it's like 4+ acres together.
Yeah.
But here's the kicker. This lot had 2 fences.
Yeah.
And as we pulled our things out of that area, we ended up in this lot that was adjacent to it, but it seemed to be part of the housing development right there behind those. And she watched as we pulled everything out as fast as we could and stacked it, you know, and we had to leave stuff because she only gave us so much time. And these men that came to clean it up or to, you know, throw everything away, he said, "Do you want us to give you a little more time?" And I said, "I don't think she's going to allow it." And she told me that. He doesn't have any say about how long it takes. And they did it, go on break right after that, which I thought was funny. But anyway, she watched us put our stuff out there and never said anything else. And then through the fence, she said, "If you come back on this property, you'll go to jail." And I said, "We're not going to come back on the property." He said, "I'm going to send another officer later." They sent another officer later. He also was on that side of the fence and said, "Don't come back on this property again, or you'll go to jail." We gave her our word, we would not go back on that property. The next day, she came without warning, and She took everything that we had, everything. Now, when all those people left because of the dismemberment and all of that, we took all their stuff they left behind. And I'm talking tents and tarps and all that stuff. And I told the ones, hey, if you're leaving and you're not coming back, when we go, we're taking it.
Mm-hmm.
They said, we'd rather
Well, you know what
take
happens? They come and they tell you that they have permission, but they don't.
Right.
And what I'm doing now is, but they're not, see, they don't like it what I'm doing. They're not happy with what I'm doing. I'm starting to request the body camera footage of the arrest and to see if what they tell the homeless people is true by reaching out to the property owners, because they tell the homeless people we have permission, but they don't.
And they can't get permission by calling them
They have
and
to have
telling them.
They have to have
because that's soliciting a trespass, which is illegal.
Yeah.
So
in other words,
if they're doing that,
the people, the law enforcement, it's well documented. They're working outside of due process.
exactly.
And then that's not fair, because
We have to abide by the law, and
Yeah.
whenever they ask us something, we say, "Why? Why is that?" Because it's the law. It's the law. It's the law. Okay. Well, if I have to abide by the law,
you do too.
why don't you have to abide by
Yeah.
the law? You
No.
can lie to me, but I can't lie to you.
Look, I'm going to be clear. I'm not an advocate of, addiction and all that.
Right.
But I
right.
do believe that you cannot take away people's rights, and that you cannot arrest people without due process, because that's an
Exactly.
injustice.
Right.
The problem is that many times law enforcement is going outside of due process and arresting homeless people, telling them lies, and then when you order the body cam footage to see if if they lied, because the homeless person can't afford a lawyer.
Right.
But when a YouTuber like me comes along and says, I can put up a lawyer, I can put up, I can pay you to get the body camera footage.
Exactly.
Let's get some accountability. It's
Listen.
been 6 weeks and they still haven't given me the footage. I was in there today trying to get the footage, and they don't want to give it to me, because now what we have to hold, and it's not going to be homeless people. One way to help homeless people is to put accountability on law enforcement in the way they're
Exactly.
handling the homeless.
Exactly. And you know what? Just because they and I tell people all the time, listen, just because they tell you something doesn't make
it's
it
true.
the truth. And you know what? Look up your rights, because if you don't know your rights, you don't know that they're being
No tengo
violated.
nada, primo.
You
Ya
have to
estoy
know.
comprometido con ella. Dale, primo.
You have to understand your rights before you can realize that they're being, abused.
But you're homeless and they're a cop. It's something of part of due process is that you can't put somebody in a situation where they're defenseless, and the homeless population is vulnerable.
Absolutely.
Law enforcement is powerful, so when law enforcement deals with a homeless person, many times, if they lie to you and tell you we got permission from the property owner, they couldn't do it to me, for example, because they know I can get a lawyer. If they arrest me, I think I can get a lawyer. I can get bailed out. I can request footage. I can pay a private investigator to follow the cop outside of work. I can do all that, but then the homeless person's vulnerable.
Well, and I know there's a lot of people that really don't care about their rights. They don't want to learn about their rights. But, my husband was told that he was not. Actually, I was told, because I asked the officer in an event, "Are we being detained?" And he said no. My husband, they said he took off, not running.
Yeah.
He went. I said, "Well, you can go on," because they were close to my mother's home, and he went to walking. They followed. It was very confusing why they went to chase him, and one of them was running his name and couldn't get it, so he was stalling. And to be honest, my husband gave the wrong name, but that's neither here nor there, because I asked if we were being detained, and he said no.
Yeah.
And he didn't chase him, tased him. He landed on the ground and broke his pinky, and I got him acquitted. And the reason I got him acquitted is because I knew our right. Our right not to be detained, and not be told that we're being detained and then be arrested. And when I got in court, I knew that. And they asked me some, 2 or 3 questions, probably thinking I was a moron and would not be a good witness, but I was a very good witness. And I said, she said, that attorney said, "Well, you just didn't want your husband to get in trouble." I said, "Nobody wants their husband to get in trouble, but my concern is that his rights are not being abused. And if you're told you're not being detained, I didn't have to give you anything, and he can walk away." But I was not named in the affidavit. The footage showed that the deputy was almost like
No, because the
confused
thing is,
himself.
they assume because you're homeless that when they stand in front of the judge, it's a homeless person versus a cop. The cop's always going to get the dignity of that, and what judge is going to settle for a homeless person over a cop?
Well, he said the jury did find him guilty of resisting arrest, which is not really, it really didn't even matter, because the truth of the matter is he should have never been arrested in the first place, because they didn't detain us. They told us we weren't detained, and then so the judge acquitted him. Now, that's the kind of thing that I think that people should realize. Just because they tell you something doesn't mean they can just up and change it, and you know, so I had to really know what our rights were before I said go ahead and go, or whatever, because I know that they're gonna switch it up, or they're gonna do what they need to do, and you know, and I've lost so much, my brother's lost so much in the past year, that I feel like this county owes us some compensation. And the reason I do is because I'm not talking about shelter and bathrooms and you know, sleeping bags. I'm talking pictures we'll never have again, cards and letters, things that my parents left behind for us, you know, things from a storage unit that they, and nothing, they, without any real, like, I'm not going to say they have warning, but
technically, in order to take property or destroy property, you have to have a search warrant from a judge.
That's exactly what I said. How can a search and seizure require a warrant, but you can look at my stuff by the road and say, if you don't have that out of here in less than an hour, we're going to bring a truck in. And I'm like, this is code enforcement. You get people with yards full of debris and garbage and everything 30 days, and you're going to give me 30 minutes? And then I come back, it's gone. Every bit
Lack
of
of
it.
due process. It's really going to take law enforcement being afraid of people demanding accountability.
Exactly.
Because the thing is, they've been year after year not afraid of violating homeless people's rights, but when there's a fear that, okay, now we're being set up, now somebody could hide a camera, now, you know, and I think the homeless people need to be more proactive.
Agreed.
And there's something called lawsuits. You know, you grab your phone and hide it in your cart, and you catch them breaking a law, take it to the right lawyer.
Exactly.
And they have to be afraid of accountability.
Absolutely.
Because what's happening is that there's no fear of accountability. Means they can do whatever they want to you, and you ain't got.
Well, they have immunity, most of the officers. Yeah. So if they have immunity, what stops them from doing or saying whatever they need to?
And let me say, even a civilian, my new program is when I get pulled over, pay the lawyer, which is $500, and then pay another $500 because the judge always, when you request that a judge evaluate something, or you tell them, hey, I'm going to contest this, it's guaranteed you're going to get a $500 fine for like contempt of court. And I've lost a few $1,000s now every time something happens. That's, even if it's trivial, I'll pay the judge, I'll pay the lawyer, pay the judge, pay the lawyer,
right,
all that, just to see what happens, and I always lose. So it's a $700 footstep that you always lose, and that's as a civilian.
Right.
So I figure as a homeless person, you're always gonna lose.
We're always on that. We're always on that last part. But the truth of it is, I wouldn't care if I took this county to court, and I sued them for everything. I don't believe in frivolous lawsuits.
Yeah.
I think that, we deserve at the very least to be compensated, and not for, you can't be compensated for your parents or the loss of your child. And for those things, I may never be able to get anything. Nothing may ever come as a way of helping me to get past it. But I can tell you this. I've lost my dignity. I've lost my self-worth, even my moral compass, my integrity, even the fact that I've been off of drugs, and every day I go, I could just sit back and do some drugs right now and just forget all of this stuff. But the truth of the matter is, you have to keep going, because you can't just hang yourself from a tree or whatever. You have to keep going. And if I'm going to keep going and I don't have anything to go for anymore because I've lost everything, and I mean everything, twice, more than twice. But when I say everything, I say all of my legal documents. I was power of attorney over my husband's stuff, gone. All of my journals. As a matter of fact, all of my journals with my chronological events that happened with the sheriff's department, gone. You name it. My purse, my ID, my letters from my husband, things that my parents had that I can't take back ever. I can't get those things back. I can't get back the memories of my family that I won't have in pictures now. And those are things that it hurts me that they can just take, and they don't have to give account why. It's to their discretion to go, okay, listen, we're going to let you take an extra day, but know this, that lot that you're moving to right there is also part of the property. That was never said to us. We were misled into believing that we were okay there.
They're playing with you, yeah. So, with all that, there's the new law in Florida. Now they technically are able to arrest you just for being homeless, but they're not?
It is. So, I never would have thought it, because the way that we're treated by collectively by the whole community.
Yeah.
But to talk to people who are aggravated and they feel that this is unconstitutional at the very least. I mean, you can't seek out anything if you can't be outside. They ran us out. As a matter of fact, we were right next door. I sat in one of those vehicles there the whole hurricane, the last hurricane, and it was terrifying. That was my only fear in the world, was the hurricane, and I sat right before.
There were people out here in the open. You saw them, and I saw them too.
Yep.
You might have seen my truck drive by in the hurricane.
It was awful.
There was people outside for the hurricane.
Yes.
Elderly people.
Yes.
People in wheelchairs.
Yes. And those people, they provided shelter. It's not that they didn't ride around and provide shelter. But there's various reasons. There's a lot of mental illness. There's a lot of physical illness. There's a lot of people that don't trust people. And they're going to risk their lives.
With reason.
Right.
So
right,
now that
exactly.
they're actually able to arrest the homeless, they're not doing it?
I think it's too controversial. I think right now it's up in the air. Like, I honestly feel like DeSantis put a Band-Aid on a bullet hole. I mean,
Yeah.
what's that going to do? What's going to happen when these people all wake up in jail and they've never had any kind of record? Now they have a record, and they're like, now what? This is unfair.
I know, I've been driving by the Salvation Army and on Coconut Street in Sarasota, all the places where homeless gather. And there's 20, 30, 40 homeless people sleeping outside. A lot of them are on wheelchairs. You're really going to arrest. But that law wasn't about fixing the problem.
Right.
It was about making people believe we might do something about it.
The sad thing is there are other states that are making progress.
Yeah.
There are things that are being written up, how to treat homeless people instead of treating them like bullying them and hurting them like cattle from one place to another. My mom and I moved 9 times. We were pushed 9 times out of spots, and these were empty buildings that were run down and ratty. I had we were really close to a sewer, right? We couldn't even sit there during the day. I mean, it was awful. And we had just moved out of we were at the end of our storage unit, and so we had to carry all of that. And we looked like a terrible convoy. My boss called it a shit show. But it's embarrassing at the very least. But they don't care if it's embarrassing. They want to make it a little more degrading. And, they push you along and, go where would we go? We'll go where you won't, out of sight, out of mind. Bullshit.
But practically, they're not arresting people for it. And
They're
I think
not.
Is it because they're afraid of getting sued? They think it's eventually going to be a lawsuit?
I think there would be. I think there would be a lot of lawsuits because
it's inhumane. It's not really logical.
How in the world can you make somebody get out of a vehicle and say you're trespassing? It's 1 in the morning. Yeah. We go sit up here and fall asleep, and then they want to come arrest us for falling asleep. Mm-hmm. Where are we going? We're asleep in a vehicle that nobody. And how does a guy even know? You know what I mean? Like, are
I think
you
what
calling
this law,
him and saying,
And one thing this law actually does, I think, it convinces homeless people to just forfeit all their other rights.
Yes.
And I think that's one thing that it's been doing is
that it
forfeits. It's a scare tactic that causes homeless people to automatically forfeit all their rights because they're homeless. Which means that all these little things we're talking about now, we've talked about in today's video, none of that even matters anymore because now you're automatically arrestable. So it forces you to forfeit all your other rights, which that's not really, in other words, it's not the intended purpose. Honey, you have been incredible. I've never taken a 46-minute interview, so
I'm sorry.
We can do another part 2 if I see you out here. I don't want to draw too much of a focal point for this long. It's late at night, but
it just gets worse and worse.
It's been a pleasure talking to you.
I'm going to write a book. I'm telling you. You're going to see it and you're going to be like, this is real. This is real. You can't explain some of the shit that goes on out here.
Thank you so much. Keep staying sober.
Thank you for doing what you do because there's so few people that get to hear the real deal.
It's actually scary. I wonder, when I sleep now at night, I wonder if they're going to kick my door down one night and because they hate what I do.
They're the monsters. I deal with every kind of person. Yeah. I would walk the street any hour and not be afraid.
It's not the criminals. It's not it's not the criminals and not the gangs that I'm afraid of.
My monsters are the officials in this town.
Yeah, and it's like I feel like one day they're going to try to stage something and retaliate because I'm giving you a voice. I'm giving people a voice who they want to eradicate.
I swear to you, that one day people are going to start getting sick at these feeds because they're going to put a person in there that's going to do something to the food. I mean, I'd never thought like that in my life. And to think that they want to get rid of us so badly that, and I've heard people say, this town would be so much better if it could get rid of the scumbags like the homeless people. I'm just one
the car dealerships, the bank's car dealerships have been stealing from us for a long time and they're still open. Nobody's trying to shut them down.
Credit cards, come on.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been
lawyers,
kind of
doctors. Yeah. Some of these doctors have how many? I think last year over 10 people died during small surgeries in Manatee County.
Listen, I went to the hospital for something. I didn't even see the doctor. The doctor didn't even touch me, look at me, and they
$10,000.
No, $59,000.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
I'm like, what? For what? I mean.
Yeah, nobody goes after the crooked lawyers and crooked doctors, but they go after us.
It's okay to be corrupt. It's just not okay to be homeless.
Yeah, and I'll tell you another thing, from my perspective, doing the job that I do, is I've interviewed like over 150 people, I think, at this point. Some of them are gone for a long time now for prison. Some of them have died, and every day I meet people in real life, and 3 months later they overdose. 6 months later, they go to prison for a very long time. I'm meeting a lot of people, getting their stories, and then seeing that 3 months later, they're gone.
Can I tell you that I read statistically, we die 17 years sooner than people that are home. And can I tell you something else? This is very important to me. The one thing that I think needs to get across to at least the people collectively, I think it should be that this quote just resonates with me all the time. One doesn't have to act with malice to cause great harm. The lack of understanding and empathy is sufficient. Wow. And that's what I believe. I believe there's no empathy, there's no thought. That could be me tomorrow, and it could be anybody tomorrow. You could be me tomorrow.
Oh yeah.
And you better hope that you are a strong person, because this is not for everybody.
I had a very nasty experience in my lifetime that almost led me to homelessness, and then I had another situation that almost led me to homelessness, and I realized, okay, this can happen to anybody, and that opened up the window of curiosity of knowing people's stories.
Count your blessings. That's the thing.
Thank you so much. Let's wrap it up. You've been amazing.
Thank you.
We'll meet again out here, okay?
Thank you.